Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by a special guest, returning guest on the podcast.
Second time.
Which is always a cool thing to do because I feel like there's things we get to talk about that we didn't get to talk about the first time, which is great. Jake Johnson, owner of SprayTech Solutions.
Yes, that's
Jake,
me.
Thanks for coming on the podcast again.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's a good time to also hopefully share some insight and reflect a little bit about where I'm at in life.
Yeah, and I think we had you on about a year ago, right? Wasn't it? Or maybe it's been more recent than that. It feels like it's been a while, and so like we can talk about obviously things that have changed over the last little while. But I'd really love to dive into Katie, who wasn't able to join for this. She's like, who you need to have back on is Jake, because he is really, really awesome about personal development and protecting the asset is what she likes to call it, like protecting the asset, which at the end of the day is yourself, especially as a small business owner. And so I'd love to maybe just kind of start there and talk about like you've had some awesome, like super rapid growth over the last 3 years and how maybe taking care of yourself has changed over the last few years. I guess first and foremost, before we even do that, reintroduce yourself to our audience and just kind of describe what you do for work over at SprayTech.
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Jake Johnson. Grew up in Blackfoot, Idaho, and about 6 years ago, started a company called SprayTech Solutions. And we kind of just focus on the niche of lawn fertilization and weed control. And we just kind of stuck with that this whole time. And I think that's helped us grow a lot as a company, just getting really good at one thing. Like plant health and weed control. We never branched off into any other services much outside of that. That's our main focus. It's what we're known for.
Yeah. And
so because of that, we've kind of exploded in growth. And so the last few years, it's been pretty fun and exciting to see the business grow and adapt with all those changes that have come with that.
Yeah. How many clients are you guys at now? Do you know? Off the top of your head, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have about 1,700 clients on a lawn program or on a reoccurring services. We end up servicing around 2,000 properties a year, which, being in a small town, Blackfoot, Idaho.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
we're in a town of, we've talked about it a bunch, but we're in a town of 12,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, all of Bingham County is maybe 50,000 total, I think.
Yeah.
40 or 50,000 total. And Bingham County is a very large county, so like not a ton of people.
No.
And so to be serving that many customers, that many homes is like super impressive. And I think it's a testament to like the type of business that you guys have built and not branching out. Like I think a lot of businesses spread themselves too thin.
Yeah.
And you guys have really leaned into, hey, we're going to get really, really good at this one thing.
Yeah.
Which I think it probably has contributed a lot to your growth.
And I think not only that, but it's like, we're not perfect. Like no company is. And I mean, I've had experience with some companies where they've messed up and they don't own up to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, like if SprayTech, if we mess up, like let us know. We'll come back out, free treatments, make it right, or whatever needs to be happening. Cause I will never leave someone just hanging by like, well, that was a crappy experience.
Yeah.
And so I try really hard. And I think I care too much. I mean, you could be a client that's paying me $65 a year, or you could be paying a client that's paying me $8,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to be able to talk to the owner.
Yep.
And I'm going to address your concerns. And if you're not happy, like I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure you get what, the results you were expecting, or at least leave the situation in a spot where both parties are happy with the end result.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I think a lot of people aren't used to that. Like now it's kind of like with how fast Southeast Idaho has grown, it's kind of been if you're not happy with the service, tough luck, go try to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially in Southeast Idaho with that kind of mindset. So I think SprayTech's done a good job at that. And it's just kind of maintaining that quality. Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that probably stresses me out as a business owner more than anything, is having 2,000 people and trying to keep happy.
Yeah, yeah. So, the cool thing that I think, and maybe it's probably not cool when you're in the middle of it, but I think that comes with a lot of long days, especially if you have callbacks, if you have situations where maybe, hey, they're frustrated with something that happened or whatever, right? And you're, like you said, you want to kind of separate yourself from other businesses, and so you're going to go take care of them. Let's talk a little bit about the long days that you have as a small business owner, especially in the industry that you're in. Because, I mean, regardless of where you are in the country, like yard care is seasonal. But in Idaho, probably more so than a lot of other places, similar to other northern climates, is like 6 months of the year, you are just full bore crazy.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably changed a little bit from maybe year 1 to now, year 6. But talk a little bit about what some of those long days look like for you.
Yeah. I mean, so like a typical day for myself is, wake up around 4:30 in the morning. If I want to sleep in, maybe sleep until 5-ish. And that's pretty much 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, early days. I don't mind, the early days.
Yeah.
And then typically I try to start my day off doing something hard, AKA, do a workout, exercise. I feel that if you can do something hard at the start of your day, when you occur other hard challenges with your business, family, whatever it may be, things seem a little bit easier to conquer.
Yeah.
So if you're able to just, get that hard task out of the way first in the morning, start your day off doing something hard, hopefully everything else goes a little bit smoother and you're able to handle those hard situations a little bit better than you would otherwise. So that's pretty typical. Then, from there, it's go straight into, overviewing the day, the schedules, making sure stuff's lined up for employees and clients. There's nothing that needs to be, anything urgent needs to be attended to before the day gets started. Get that knocked out of the way.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's getting employees ready to go and start cranking out jobs. And a lot of my days is filled with managing employees and managing client expectations.
Yeah.
And so I'm a pretty hands-on business owner. It's been hard for me to delegate some of the things. And I even try to tell my employees, the stresses of me running the business fall on me. Don't let the stresses of, work. I don't want my employees to be stressed out outside of work.
Yeah.
And so I really try hard as a business owner to set it up in a way where, sure, my employees take on some of that stressful responsibility, but I don't want them to go home at the end of the day stressed out.
Yeah.
And I try to help them any way I can as a business owner to make sure they're not taking that stress home with them, which I think maybe falls a little bit more on me.
Well, so I was going to ask, that probably puts a ton of it back on yourself. So, how do you deal with? I mean, the recommendation of getting up early and doing something hard, I think helps for sure. But what else do you do to make it so that you can go home and not be stressed? Because I think you put a lot of that on yourself. That's probably pretty tough.
No, and you're right. I mean, when I first started, every client had my personal cell phone number.
Yeah.
And it'd be 9 o'clock at night and someone call me about their yard. I'd be like, dude,
there's nothing I can do about it at 9 p.m. Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say it. I really do care about everyone's yards and getting them a great result. But it's no one's yard is that important.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A 9 p.m. phone call, it's not that important to where I need to drop what I'm doing with my family.
Yeah.
Or
we can take care of it tomorrow.
Yeah. So I ended up getting another cell phone 2 years ago. And so my work phone, at 5:30, 6 p.m., it goes on silent mode. I toss it aside.
Yeah.
And it's okay, turn the phone off. I'm shutting down the
That's
work
cool.
brain. And so I feel like having two phones is also kind of symbolic. Okay, I'm shutting my phone down. It's also where a lot of my work comes from. It's shut the phone down, shut the work down. Let's focus on something else.
Yeah.
And it's tough, man. You always hear running a business is a juggling act.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't care what you're doing. You cannot juggle a business and family life and not drop something.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing business, it has to be business. And when you're with family, it has to be family. And I'm still learning. It's not easy.
Yeah. I love that though. I think having setting some guidelines for yourself, even as the owner of the business, I think is super, super helpful. I mean, we talk the last 2 years since we started the podcast, we've done this mental health awareness series, which has been super cool. Because it's been eye-opening for us of making sure we're taking care of ourselves and taking care of our mental health. And I think that ties right into what you're saying of hey, I'm going to set some guidelines that nobody's talking to me about work after 6 p.m. or whatever. At least
Yeah.
I'm not getting a client call. There might be other stuff come up. I've got to take care of an employee, or, I'm working on a project or something, but I'm at least not going to get a client call after 6 p.m.
Yep.
And not have to stress about, I've got to go take care of that, or this client's calling me about their yard at 9 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
I think having that guideline is like super, super helpful.
Yeah. And it's tough. And I think understanding like how you're wired is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, growing up on a farm and like just that growing up, like I grew up with 2 brothers.
Yeah.
And like with my dad a lot. My mom worked. And so it was like really me working alongside my dad a lot growing up. And you know how men are. You don't talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
You don't talk about mental health. Like it just never occurred.
Yeah.
And and if you did have a problem, you just sucked it up, tighten up your bootstraps and get to work. You know, and it's like I still have that mindset a lot. And my wife finally convinced me to go see a therapist. Just this last winter in February. And it was actually super fun to be able to like sit back and just like unfold maybe the way I think.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
that's cool.
I realized like a lot of my self-worth comes from my performance. Like if I'm not working hard, if I'm not accomplishing stuff, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And so it's tough. Like when I go on vacations, it's tough, dude, because it's like, I'm not getting anything done.
Yeah, you're like almost depressed about like I feel like I haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah. We did a quick trip to Park City the other week, and I took like 3 days off, and I'm like, dude, I could be getting so much stuff done if I was like working right now.
Yeah,
and it's tough because like I know at that time like it's my family, and that's where I'm dropping the ball. Like juggling work and family, and like you can't you got to just pick one and hold it, and you're holding that whatever objective in that life you're holding, whether it's family, personal life or work life, you got to pick one. And while you're holding that one, you just got to focus on it. And there's times where I drop the ball, like where I'm like, I'm supposed to be with my family and I'm thinking about work and I'm dropping that ball, and it's tough. And it's mentally, it's been a good challenge as a business owner to be able to really understand that and dive into maybe a little bit more of my mental health than I normally would have.
Yeah.
On a normal job where I can just go home at 5 o'clock and forget about work.
Shut it off, man.
So
it's interesting, a couple of things you brought up there. We did a team-wide training the other day where Katie talked about, she had this matrix, and I had seen this before, but the way she kind of did it was a little bit different. And I can't remember all the pieces of it, but what she was trying to help us identify was like what is urgent and what is important and what maybe isn't, and why maybe you should not stress about those things as much. And she was really using it in the lens of like, we're all, where we work, we're all on our computers and we're constantly bombarded with like notifications. Client sent us an email. We got a notification in Slack, which is like our internal communication device, right? Like we got all these different notifications popping up and they're distracting from like the task that we're trying to do right at that time. Maybe we're trying to get on a client call or prep for a client call, or we're building out an advertising account, whatever it might be. And those other things can distract you, but you think they're important. You think they're urgent, but maybe they're really not. And I think that ties into what you're saying about like shutting off that work phone at 5 or 6 o'clock or going on vacation for 3 days. If there really is something that needs to be done, or if there really is a client that needs to get a hold of you, they will find a way to get a hold of you. Like, you can shut the phone off for a little while. You can go on a vacation and put your business in the hands of your employees for a couple of days. Like, everything's going to be okay. The world's not going to end. And I think that, like, just for your mental health and for making sure you're taking care of yourself is so, so, so important. Something that I, like, and I don't own a business, but like something that I still struggle with, just like managing a team. Like, I'll take a day off and like just constantly be looking at Slack or looking at my email, just thinking something's going to go bad, and generally they don't, and like you can relax, like you can not stress about that stuff. And I think it's been helpful for me having those types of trainings with Katie and hearing you talk about that, because I've got to set boundaries better for myself. Yeah,
and I've dealt with the same thing where it's like not, and I think in the last like 5-6 years, dude, I used to have a temper, man. Like I would, and it still comes out once in a while, but it's not near as bad.
Yeah.
And I think, running a business and handling the stresses of that business, I've adapted a lot in terms of like, dude, if you would have taken me year one and thrown me into year 6 of a business,
2,000 clients and
dude,
all of that,
I would have buckled under the pressure. You know, and I would have probably gone crazy with the stress. But it's like working out, like you're going to work that muscle. It's going to get stronger. The work doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. And I'm grateful for the challenges that I've had in my life, whether it be business related or, personal life related. Because at the end of the day, you come out stronger on the other side. And so, when the next, tough thing or stress comes up in your life, hopefully those past experiences will help you adapt and be able to overcome what you're going to face. And I think, having a good foundation from the start is what you need. And, making sure you have a good personal life, work life, make sure you're doing things to strengthen that foundation, so that you are ready for, when you do have those stressful moments.
I love describing it that way. Again, working out the muscle, because you go through periods of your life where like, man, I don't think I could be any more busy or any more stressed. And it's like, you could always be more busy, more stressed, and how you maybe develop your capacity or increase your capacity, or your maybe work on that skill of maintaining your schedule or maintaining those stressful times, is you kind of have to work on it. Like it's something you have to learn how to deal with in order to overcome it. And I think back to 3, 4, 5 years ago, that when I thought I was stressed or things were getting crazy, like it now is just way different. And I think if you'd put 4 years ago Hayden into where he is at now, he'd probably freak out. But because I've developed along the way, I feel a lot better about just life in general. So
no, I'd agree. And I think like, with running a business, it's or any working a normal 9-to-5 job, you spend especially in the early stages, like when you are trying to figure out your career and work up the work ladder or the corporate ladder or whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of times we get really caught up on that work resume. Like, dude, I got to like get this next job. I got to get this experience. I got to
get this promotion.
Got to get this promotion. And you're so focused on this work resume, but like, what's your life resume? What do you want to do in life? And like a big motivator for me to run Spray Tech is to, create, some financial freedom for my family down the road. And I tell myself that, I work these long days. So like, my family can have good experiences. Truth be told, dude, like I think I'm a little bit of addicted to the entrepreneurship, man. Like if I sold my company tomorrow, dude, I'd be hustling, doing something else.
You'd start another business.
And I tell my wife, like, oh yeah, there might be a day when I sell it and we can like, ride it to the sunset. Dude, if I'm being realistic with myself, like I'm going to find another thing to keep me occupied. And it so I think it's important, like for my family and for myself, is to have those boundaries. Like, okay, like, hey,
because if this is something you're always going to do, you got to have the boundaries.
And I think I'm wired that way. And unless I like, rewire my brain, like I'm going to, be a little bit of addicted to that like entrepreneurship hustle. I'm always looking for that next way to like solve someone's problems, find a need to fix, and let's see if we can make some money off of it.
But if you set the boundary and are like, okay, I can hustle and grind and do all that for 8 or 10 hours a day, but the rest of it is with my family or recuperating, or I'm going to go work out and take care of myself. I think that can be like a healthy way to do it.
And like, in my life, dude, like I want to experience it all. Like, and like when I say like a life resume, like what do you want to do in life when it's over? Like, do you want to like, go experience the world? Is there a hobby that you want to do or learn? And so like, a couple of years ago, I decided I want to get my pilot's license. It was just like something that took me away from work. And it focused me on being present in that moment. Like you can't go fly a plane and be thinking about stuff on the ground.
Like you got to be fully focused.
You got to be focused, especially in those early stages when you're learning it. You know, like you got to be 100% in. You got to be fully focused. You can't be, get preoccupied, distracted, and not, pre-flight your airplane correctly. And then go take it up. Like you can't. And so I think anybody in any situation, whether you're working a 9-to-5 or you're an entrepreneur, like you gotta have some kind of, personal activity or hobby or something that like just kind of like where you can unstress and unwind from the daily life.
Yeah. Love it, man. I think, we talk a lot about it on the podcast is like having white space, and you can determine you can take like white space a couple different ways. One way can be just like something mindless to just shut your brain off and, watch Netflix or turn on TV. But you could also take that as like, go do an activity or go do something that requires all of your focus.
Yeah.
So that you then can't think about the stresses of life or work and flying an airplane. I talk about like fishing is that way for me in a lot of ways, that like I have to be kind of all in focused on it. Otherwise, like I'm just going to be standing in a river for no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I kind of have to be pretty dialed in and focused. And if I'm not, I'm just standing in a river. And so like that helps me to like, okay, I'm going to shut my brain off. I'm not going to worry about work. I'm not going to worry about checking my email.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this thing for the next few hours. And it ends up like I feel recharged afterwards. I feel relaxed. I just feel way better about everything. And that's how you protect the asset, protect your brain, so.
Yeah, and you have to have those, whether it's in your personal life, work life, like you got to have those boundaries. Like too much of one thing's bad, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm proponent of that. Too much work life, bad thing. Too much of just playing around, probably a bad thing. Yep. So, and like the other thing I've been like trying to work on a lot is like my relationship, like obviously with my family, but also with time.
Yeah.
Like people don't really think about it, but like, what's your relationship with time? Like, how do you use it?
Yeah.
How do you view it? And dude, like something I realized, dude, time goes by so fast. Like it's gone, man. Like it's crazy to think that I've had spray tech for 6 years already. And it's like, this year's already July, like the year's halfway over. Like, I'm like, what's going on? And so, viewing my relationship with time and like finding out, like, I'll be honest, like when you're in a routine, time goes by fast. Like you're used to it. You're clocking in, you're clocking out. You're clocking in, you're clocking out.
Yeah.
Another day goes by. And like for the last like 3 months of running spray tech, like, dude, time's gone by so fast. Why? Because I'm in a routine of like getting up at 4:30, running, working out, going to set up clients. And so, I think breaking up that routine once in a while is a great way to slow down time.
Yeah.
Like find a way to break up the routine, find a way to slow down time. And like, I don't know if you've ever sat in it, like an empty room with nothing, no distractions. Like if you just had just your thoughts to yourself.
Yeah, not very often.
Dude, time is so slow.
Yeah.
Like 3 minutes seems like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like no distractions, no nothing. You just sat there with your eyes closed thinking.
That's cool.
And so like, yeah, and it allows you, I think it's good for someone to just stop what you're doing, and just be with your thoughts.
Yeah.
The Success Elevated podcast is brought to you by SOS Navigator. SOS Navigator is an on-demand training platform geared towards marketing, personal development, and business growth. We understand that as a business owner in the service industry, you wear a million hats. Let SOS Navigator be a simple and cost-effective way for you to continue to grow your business. Click the link in the show notes below and use code SOS Podcast to get 10% off your next on-demand training course.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity. I want to maybe just dive in real quick here at the end. Let's talk about some goals. I know, I don't know if this is something that you're, I would assume it is, just because of the way you are and the way you talk about your business and your personal development. But like, what are some goals that you have either for your business or for your personal development over the next, say, year? Because, we had you on the podcast about a year ago. Let's talk about like what the next year or so looks like for you. What are you trying to develop? What maybe a skill that you're trying to get better at? What's a goal that you got?
Yeah, so business related, my goal is working on the systems in the business.
Yeah.
So, and what do I mean by that is like, what systems do we need in place to make it more automated?
Yeah.
And, as a business owner, like, I was telling my wife, like, the beginning of the year, I was like, I think we're going to be really good this year. Like, I got some awesome employees. Everything's looking really good.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm going to have my time back.
Yeah.
Like, we're looking good. My wife's like, oh, like, she's all like excited. Literally, that same night, an employee calls me at 9:30, and I can tell he's stressed out. I'm like, dude, you okay? And his wife was pregnant at the time, so I'm like, maybe his wife's going to labor. I could tell like he's a little bit like distressed on the phone. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, dude, I just broke my ankle, man. I just want to let you know. I was like,
oh,
and he was like one of my favorite new hires this year, like solid dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck's going on? You know? And he's like, yeah, I'm on my way to the hospital right now. Like, I just want to let you know I'm not going to be at work tomorrow. And what we do for work, like, you got to be on your feet. Like, he's useless.
Yeah.
And so then this problem of like, crap, like we're a down employee. Every employee has their own route. Every employee services around 60 to 80 yards a week. Yeah. And so I'm like, how are we going to, service these employees or houses with this employee down? And then it was like that moment I was like, man, I'm going to have to like pull up the boots and get back to work. Like this is time to go. So like this year is like developing the systems. Like if that happened again, like am I going to have the system in place where I'm not going to be stressed out and be able to conquer those things? And so that's the big focus right now is incorporating systems. My goal is to buy back my time through the business and having the systems in place to do that. So that's over the next year or two, I'd like to do that. And then also be able to replicate it. Like I've been really interested in replicating this business model in another location, possibly, so if I get the systems down to do that, that'd be the next step for sure. So that's kind of goals, business related, personal life. Obviously find more time to spend with my family and deconnect from the work stress life. And so that just involves like my wife and I were talking the other day, like just every Sunday, like go over the plans for the week together. Like just every Sunday, like have like just me and her, like just say, this is what we need to do this week. This is what we need to get done. And just stick to it. Yeah. And so it's just the little things like that, I think, that make the big changes in your life down the road.
Yeah. That's cool.
So that's kind of my main focus right now is, balancing time, focusing a lot on time. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about it lately, like my relationship with time, and it sounds weird, but just being able to, handle and not drop the ball in those areas.
I love it, man. I think those are awesome goals, and I think, you guys have obviously built a super successful business, and it's going to continue to be more successful. You work on those things, and I've loved everything you've shared today because it's 100% are things that I'm trying to work on right now, trying to work on protecting the asset, separating work and life, and trying to make sure that I'm really, really taking care of myself. And I think the way that I got to do that is I've got to make it a priority. And I've got to find the time and manage my time better so that I can truly separate those two things.
And the other thing to look at, like the average American lives to be like 78? Yeah. Like how many 70-year-olds do you see like out there skydiving, climbing mountains? So like, let's be real. Like you have like until like you're 60 to really enjoy life. Yeah. So like
if you spend all that time working.
Yeah. Work on those goals, build that life resume that you want at the end of the day. Like, find something hard to do in the mornings and find something hard to do every year. Yeah. Like something that's just a tone for you for the year. Yeah. And do it.
I love it. That's the title of the podcast right there is Build Your Life Resume, dude. Yeah. That's a great way to phrase it. Jake, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was an awesome conversation. We're going to have you on again in the future. You're a local guy here in Blackfoot, and I love having local guys on because we get to do cool things like that and have it videoed so we don't have to do it over Zoom, over a computer. And so really appreciate you coming on, and we're going to have you on again in the future.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Thanks, Jake.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.